Hi everyone, it's John from RFM Calc, and today, as part of our series taking a deep dive look into the additional features you get with RFM Calc, as well as just all the reports we generate, we're taking a look at our customer CSV export. So if I scroll down here on the homepage to details of the account plans, you can see the customer CSV file is included with all plans on the small plan and above. So we don't include it on the free plan and we don't include it on the micro plan. So what this does is when you generate a report, we'll generate a full customer CSV. So every customer in your order data, we will generate a CSV listing all your customers with a whole load of really useful metrics against them. So this has been a core part of RFM Calc since we launched originally, but over time we have added more data to the CSV to really enhance it. So there's some really quite cool data in there now, which I'll show shortly. So this will work obviously for any e-commerce platform like RFM Calc. As a whole, it's completely platform agnostic. As long as you can upload your order file to us, we can generate a customer CSV file off the back of that. So in terms of how this is generated, you don't have to do anything special. If you're on our small plan or above, we'll automatically generate the CSV file for you every time you generate a report. So if I go to a project here, go to my test WooCommerce project, you can see on the report that I've generated today, I've got this little option here to download the customer CSV file. So if I click that, you can see here there's a link to download the CSV, and that'll just download the CSV straight away when you click that. So there's a little note here, and this is detailed in various places on the site. We do delete the CSV file after 7 days. So there's a couple of reasons for that. The main one really is that obviously there's a lot of customer data in there, so you could have email addresses, phone numbers. Obviously, like the main report, you've got the option to completely anonymize that data, so I'll demonstrate both types shortly. But either way, it's a good idea probably not to have it sat on our servers indefinitely, so that's why, just to kind of prompt you and make sure you download it, we delete it after 7 days. You can also, of course, delete the report here as soon as you've downloaded it, and that will delete the customer CSV file too automatically. So I think the simplest way to show what the CSV contains is just to run through a couple of examples. So I've got a few prepared here. Now obviously with it being a CSV, I've saved these again just to kind of expand the columns and make it a bit easier to read, but this is exactly the same data as you'll get in your customer CSV. So this is from a WooCommerce site. Now if you've seen my video on WooCommerce and how to export from there, I installed a module on my test WooCommerce site that automatically generates test orders with fake names and emails. So that's why this data is not anonymized, because these aren't real people, but it gives a really good demonstration of the data you get. So in the first column, we've got customer ID. So that will typically be the customer's email. Obviously, you specify this when you schedule a report. So if you have a better internal ID, that would be reflected in this column. You've then got first name, last name, combined name. So first name with a space, then the last name. Company, if that's available. The customer email, because the customer ID doesn't necessarily have to be the email, so we put that in its own column. The customer phone. You've then got location data, if you specify this in your CSV, in your order CSV when you schedule the report. So we've got the region, the customer country code, which we convert for you. So even if you upload the full name of the country, we'll convert that into the code for you. We've then got the full country name based on that country code. So that's the proper ISO 3166 standard name there. So even if you upload United States of America, for example, we'll convert that into US, and then we'll convert it back into the proper country name for you. So these are all ISO 3166 standard country codes and names. We've then got the total orders placed by that customer, their total spend, so they're effectively their lifetime value, their average spend per order. We've got the date of their first order, the date of their last order spend. We've got their predicted next order date. So what that is based on is the average time between orders. So if they placed 2 orders, we'll look at the average time between the second and third order and add that on to their last order date to predict a date when they'll place their next order. We've then got their predicted spend. We've got a little column here, which is customer has lapsed. So that indicates has the date passed where we thought the customer would place their next order. We've then got also all the RFM data as well. So it's really phenomenal amount of data in the CSV for each customer. So you've got the recency score, the frequency score, the monetary score. So if you don't understand RFM, feel free to watch the RFM video that we did recently explaining how that's calculated. We then get the overall RFM score. We get the standard RFM segment, which is basically S1 to S5 in terms of your best customers are in the S5 segment, your worst customers are in the S1 segment. And then we've got your custom RFM segment as well. So if your account plan supports that, you can specify custom RFM segments based on these recency, frequency, monetary scores, and we'll pull that through to the CSV as well. You've then got your custom columns, which I'll demonstrate on a different site shortly. So it's a really massive wealth of data. What you can do, I mean, there's endless things you can do with this, really. Obviously, you can produce really easily. You could filter and say, okay, we've got who are our best customers. You can then upload that back into your email service provider, for example, as a segment, and say these emails are my best customers and target them accordingly. You can look for customers who are potentially lapsed. So customers who maybe have a monetary score of 5, so the big spenders, but a recency score of 1, so they haven't spent for a long time, and target them as well. So there's really a wealth of data you can get here for each individual customer, which you can then feed back into your CRM, your ESP, whatever system you're using. So it's really, really powerful. So just to show, as I'm sure you already know, but just to absolutely prove RFM Calc is completely platform agnostic, let's have a look at exports from a couple of other sites. So this is from a Shopify site. Now this is a real live Shopify site, so obviously the data here is anonymized. So what you get in the anonymized form of this file is you get a unique customer ID, but obviously not the customer's actual email address. It's a unique hash value. You've then got customer first name and last name is just customer name. So we keep that there just to make it really, really clear it's anonymous. And then company email phone is blank because we don't pull those through for anonymized files. You still get the region and the country code because, effectively you can't really identify an individual customer by their region and country, so that's fine. So you can still do analysis based on country. You still get the orders placed and the total spend, average spend per order, first order date, last order spend, predicting next order date. It's a phenomenal amount of data and predicting next order spend as well. All the RFM data. So this particular site has a lot more data associated with the custom RFM segment. So you've got top customers here, and then if we scroll down, not every customer has a custom segment because that's defined by you in the project settings, how many segments you set up. But we've got high spending new customers, lapsed big spenders. Obviously, you can set these really easily in your project if your account plan supports it. And obviously we'll pull that through to the CSV just to make that really easy to identify. I think with custom segments, obviously it's, you can do that yourself as well. In Excel, for example, you've got all the scores here that build these custom segments, but it's obviously a lot easier if we do it for you and add it for you. It just saves a job. And then what's really interesting as well is custom columns. So if you've seen our video on custom columns, you can see that we allow you to specify these when you generate a report. So payment method, for example, we will generate a whole host of reports around payment method for your store if you specify that as a custom column. So we'll show you obviously monthly breakdowns, overall breakdowns in terms of revenue and orders for payment methods, but we'll also show you customer lifetime value. We'll show you average time between orders based on payment method as well. So what we do here, which is really interesting, we pull through that custom column value for this customer, but not just for their first order, also for their last order, which is really, really interesting. So you can get some really interesting data from this. So you can see consistently customers with multiple orders will generally use the same payment method. So here's Shopify payments on the last order as well. Sometimes you'll see a difference. So this particular customer used Afterpay for their first order. They then used Klarna for their last order. So that's kind of interesting. We've got the same as well for shipping method, which we specified as a custom column for this Shopify store when we generated the report. So again, we pull through that custom column and then for the first order for this customer and the last order. So you can see that. And then where this gets really useful is, as you probably know if you work with Shopify, there's a column in the order CSV called accepts marketing. Now, you probably want to know if you're going to reuse this data, if you're going to upload it into your ESP or CRM system, which customers have opted into marketing. But of course, whether they were opted into marketing or not on their first order isn't really important, because if they've opted out since then, that's the value you need to worry about. So in this case, it's actually a lot more useful to look at the last order value. So you can see here, the top 2 customers for this site, they accepted marketing initially. when they place their first order, perhaps they signed up to the email address, the email mailing list, to get a discount, but on their most recent order, they're not on the marketing list anymore. So that's obviously important data to know if you want to target these customers. You can still do some forms of targeting. You can still potentially send them direct mail, which obviously isn't covered by GDPR in Europe and the UK. But you probably wouldn't be able to email them, standard marketing emails because they've opted out of that. So that's really, really interesting data as well to see for Shopify. And then we've got one more example from Magento. So again, we've got the same data. This is all anonymized as well because we've got obviously the customer ID, customer first name. You can see it's all anonymized. Magento doesn't by default pass through a region or country, so that's blank as well. Obviously, this is a real site, hence why in the project settings before running the report, we anonymize the data. Obviously, you can do that as well. That's absolutely fine. But just to give you a flavor of the data, again, you've got the orders placed, total spend, average spend per order, so you can see really clearly which customers are spending the most when they place, first order date, last order spend, all that great data, all the great RFM data as well, the custom segments. And then for the custom columns for this site, we've got payment method again, because Magento does include that in the order export. So again, you can see customers generally use the same payment method over and over again. You get some exceptions. So this customer here used Klarna on their first order, but then they use PayPal on their last order for whatever reason. You can dig into that more if you want to. And then if you've seen our video on custom columns for this particular Magento site, we did some clever stuff in Excel to basically add a couple more custom columns. It's really, really flexible, the custom column system. So we did one for ships to billing address, which is either yes or no based on if their billing address is the same as their shipping address. So you can see you've got little examples here where, for example, this customer on line 10, when they first placed their initial order, they shipped it to their billing address. Their last order, they didn't. So that could be for a variety of reasons. Maybe they were sending a gift, but again, it's data you can really dig into. And then what we did as well for this Magento site is we pulled through the Google source channel. So we exported all the order IDs from Google Analytics with the source channel next to that. We then VLOOKUPed into the order CSV to basically add an extra column for Google source channel based on the order ID. Obviously, you can use things like Google's Data Studio as well if you're a bit more advanced to do things like that. But then that gives some really, really interesting data, so you can see, for your best customers, how did they find you on their first order? And that's phenomenally powerful, to be able to look at a customer record and go, actually, how did they find us? And obviously, you could be more granular with that in Google Analytics. So I just did channel. As a nice easy example, you could do source medium, you could do referral path. All that data is available from Google Analytics or whatever analytics system you're using, and then you can map that back against the order ID in your order file before you upload it into RFM Calc. So it's a bit more legwork for you, but the data you get out of it is phenomenal. So you can see for this top customer, they came on generic paid search for their first order, and actually they came back on generic paid search for their last order, which is really, really interesting. What you'd more expect to see is customers potentially coming in on branded paid search and then direct, or potentially something like this. So this line 15, where they came in on generic paid search originally, but then they came back on branded paid search. And then you've got a lot of customers obviously coming back direct once they know who you are. That could be bookmarked, that could just be clicking a link they've saved in their browser. Coming back through direct, but then you'll see patterns certainly where they come in on generic paid search initially for their first order, and then branded paid search because they know who you are when they come back. So it's really, really interesting data, this, to be actually able to look at a customer by customer level and see how did this customer find our site, and then how are they placing orders now. It's phenomenally powerful data, and this is actually a very popular feature of RFM Calc. I think it's a feature, to be honest, that some users when they first sign up don't realize it's there, hence one of the reasons we're doing these informational videos. But once you kind of understand this, and once you're maximizing the data that you're giving to RFM Calc, the data we can give you back is really, really powerful. Okay, so I think that's pretty much everything. Hopefully that's been useful. As you can see, the customer CSV is really, really powerful if you're able to use it correctly, particularly if you can pass through custom column data. But even if you can't, just being able to see on a customer by customer basis, all this data is really, really powerful, and traditionally quite difficult to get to in e-commerce platforms. But obviously that's what RFM Calc does. It makes it really, really easy to get this data. So thank you for watching. Hopefully that's been useful. Obviously, if you've got any questions, feel free to drop us a line on the site via the contact us link in the footer there. But if not, I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Thanks, everyone.